Recently, Bigfoot was just a fun subject that my husband and I enjoyed together. We listened to podcasts about the subject, not really knowing if Bigfoot was real or imagined. It was intriguing to think of another life form, undiscovered and roaming the woods. The scenery is usually great in these videos as well. Sometimes we would drive out to the Bankhead National Forest on the weekend for peace and quiet, and our kids chided, "Oh, there goes Mom and Dad again, squatching." We talked about what it would be like to see a Bigfoot, but it was mostly lighthearted chit-chat. At Christmas, we adopted a pit bull terrier named Bond. He is an obedient dog and well-tempered with my grandchildren. He almost never barks at anyone but strangers. He is a faithful friend and he follows me everywhere. We had had him for a couple of months when he began to act strange. I'd take him out one last time after dark, and he would be ready and excited to go, and then as soon as the door would open, he would back up and dig in and refuse to go outside. Since it's the last time he'll go out before bed, when this happens, I have to pull his 60-pound butt out the door. One evening, I was taking him out around 8:30 p.m. He put up a fuss the moment the door opened. He tried running under the chairs on the porch, so I took him out onto the driveway. Then he tried to crawl under the vehicle. "What's wrong with you, you big scaredy cat?" I said. I pulled him down the drive a few feet where there was nothing to tangle himself in, and he sat on my feet. I continued to fuss at him, wondering what on earth had gotten to him, and was trying to get him to get on with his business. That's when the loudest growl I ever heard, the deepest, longest howl, burst into the air. It was so close, the sound vibrated my chest. I would have looked for the source, but the dog, being on a leash, dragged me down the sidewalk into the house. I am no delicate, frail little woman. Bond went straight to the house and into his kennel, and my mind raced. I checked the doors and windows. I checked on my kids, and they were still in the house. I began to think about my daughter, who would come home from work in a few minutes, so I sent her a text and told her that I'd meet her in the driveway. My husband worked second shift, so he would be coming home later. I thought of the large kitchen picture window not 3 feet off the ground on that side of the house. There wasn't any curtains because it faces the pasture and the woods. Later, when my husband got home, I met him with a spotlight and I said, "Bigfoot isn't funny anymore." I haven't been able to identify the sound. I have hunting experience, but I've never heard anything like this. I started researching animal sounds, but I didn't find anything remotely similar. The days went on, and I thought of the nights the boys and I slept in the tents on the hill in the back of the property when they were younger, even with my girls once, and how we walked back at 2 a.m. because they kept saying someone was walking and throwing things at us. At that time, my husband and I didn't take them seriously. I remembered my grandmother who used to own this property, and it was so out of character for her to lie, and even she would tell me to be in by dark or the boogers would get me. Well, I didn't take her seriously either until that night I heard one with my own ears. I recall the strange behavior of the deer on our property recently. Once, 3 bucks and 2 does were trotting down the paved road with 3 cars behind them. Only when the driver honked did they turn onto a gravel road that led to the barn in the woods behind our house. My husband and I have hit 3 deer since New Year's Eve. Instead of crossing in front of us, they tried to run alongside the cars. One ran into the back of my husband's truck less than a week ago. It's as if they think that by being closer to us, they are safer, like the vehicle is some sort of a shield. We're surrounded by fields, woods, and ponds and creeks, but we are 3 miles from town, and there's never been a bear report in our county. We are at the front of the foothills, and they say there are very few bears in the Bankhead National Forest to the southwest. Now, we know people who say that there are some near the southeast, but the sound I heard was not a bear or a wild pig or any kind of cat. While I didn't see anything, I know something big passes through. I like to believe it only passes through and does not stay here very long. From time to time, Bond still refuses to go outside. I'm good with that. I don't want to share my name. I live in a small southern community. Bless their hearts, if you know what I mean. Yes, I know what you mean. And the creepiest part of this story are the deer, the behavior of the deer. That is so odd that the deer would kind of cling close to vehicles too. Maybe they, like you said, maybe they think they're safer. I've never heard that before. That's something new. And a lot of these Bigfoot stories, I've done hundreds, even thousands of them. And so many of them are basically, with a few variations, the same, but I've never heard this before. This is a new one, so it kind of piqued my interest again about this deer behavior. I'd like to know if any of you all have heard that. If you've heard about that, comment below. Thank you to the writer, and bless your heart for sending the story. It was really good. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, this is a ghost story that I think you all will really be intrigued by and interested in and entertained, which is the purpose of this channel, is to entertain you. In January of 1968, my family experienced a strange event. What makes it interesting is that we were spread out among 3 different locations between New England towns. That evening, my father, my cousin, and I were smelt fishing, which involves sitting in a shack on a frozen river and fishing through a hole in the ice. Across town at Augusta General Hospital, my grandfather, who we call Pampy, was lying in bed and enduring the final few hours of his life. My mother and grandmother were there by his side. My grandparents' house was in a little town called Richmond. The house was a large, rambling 2-story, multi-roomed home built in the style of the 1950s. My sister, Deb, was sitting in the kitchen entertaining herself, and the rest of the adults were in the living room watching television. At around 9 in the evening, my Pampy, who was coming in and out of consciousness, suddenly started singing a beautiful gospel song about heaven. My mom and my nanny said that they had never heard it before, even though they had attended church all their lives. Minutes later, Pampy had given up the ghost and was pronounced dead by the doctors. At that same time, in my grandparents' house, my sister said that she could hear a bird singing. At first, it frightened her. She ran from the kitchen to the living room where the adults were, and the bird song followed her. Every adult in the room heard it. Remarkably, even my great-grandmother could hear it too, even though she was quite deaf and could only hear if you spoke very loudly. They listened in silence as the birdsong passed into the second sitting room, and from there the noise went upstairs and finally faded away. To say they were mystified would be an understatement. At that time, 6 miles away as the crow flies, my dad, my cousin, and I were in our shacks fishing for smelts. My cousin walked from his shack over to my dad and me to see if we were having any luck. And when he went back to his shack, our lantern started to brighten. We attributed it to just a gas lantern needing air. But right then, my cousin ran back to us with a look of fear and confusion on his face. He told us that when he went to see us, he left his bucket of fish inside the shack, and when he went back, the door was open and the bucket was gone. We were the only ones fishing on that river, but to prove it, there were no footprints in the snow other than our own. It wasn't until later that we shared the experiences we had had with one another and found out that they had occurred at all the same time. It has been 50 years since these events took place, and I'm glad I finally have written them down. Though I still ponder on that night, I have come to one possible answer. That answer is one word: Pampy. Oh, that's a good story. Maybe your grandfather was saying goodbye in a way, and God let him just kind of move around and give y'all a sign that he was leaving. I thought this was a great story. I read this cold. I thought it was going to be a scary ghost story on the beginning. And I guess to some people this could be scary, but to me it was kind of good. It was kind of a peaceful, how would you call it? Kind of a soft story. I like that. I appreciate it. Thank you to the writer, and I'm glad you wrote it down too, because now we all got to enjoy something that you experienced that you'll remember all your life. Thank you for that. All right, Bigfoot, Bigfoot. Everybody likes Bigfoot. It's a short one, but it's a good one. I was raised outdoors in Arizona in 2011. My dad and I went elk hunting near Alpine, Arizona. We had been up there for a few days when one night I was woke up by something heavy walking by my tent on 2 feet. Right away, my hand went for my single action revolver, and as soon as I had my fingers around it, the thing stopped. It must have heard me, and then right away I felt like I was about to be attacked. Whatever it was like it was staring right at me through the walls of the tent. Well, I let out a slow breath and I heard it move toward the fire pit in my dad's tent. As much as I wanted to get up and see what was moving around, something told me that that was a bad idea. I clutched my revolver, I heard the ice chest open, and I heard this thing rummage through the contents. I heard it close the lid, and then I listened to it leave the way it came in. The next morning when my dad got up, he asked me what I was looking for in the cooler last night. I wanted to tell him that it wasn't me, that it was Sasquatch, but instead I laughed and I told him I thought it was him making the noise. He looked through the ice chest to see if anything had been taken and said several sodas and candy bars were missing. He asked me if I was sure it wasn't me, and I finally had to tell him what I heard the night before. When I was younger, I always had a feeling of being watched in the woods where the hair on my neck would stand up. I would stop and look around for a bear or a mountain lion or something, but I never really put stock in Bigfoot or aliens or any other thing of that nature. But after that night in Alpine, all that changed. Oh man, that was a good story. Apparently the Bigfoot didn't want to hurt you. He just wanted a candy bar and a Coke. That's what he wanted, and he was gone. So maybe that's a good lesson. If you're camping, Bigfoots are in the area. Leave out a candy bar and a Coke, and they'll just walk off in the woods. But I can imagine this being a scary event. It's a very good story, very concise. I appreciate the writer. Thank you, sir. All right, we'll end this up with a good ghost story from Texas. This is a good one. In 2008, I moved from Texas to Nashville. No, it's a ghost in Nashville. Sorry about that. In 2008, I moved from Texas to Nashville for work, and I purchased an old Craftsman home. For those who don't know, East Nashville is in the process of gentrification. Old houses that were left to neglect are now being renovated. The neighborhood is so old, in fact, that Frank and Jesse James went into hiding there for a while. At the time, I had 2 dogs, a Dalmatian and a Weimaraner. I never knew how to say that word. Weimaraner? Weimaraner? I don't know how to say it. You know what dogs? It's gray dogs with the short tails. And they slept on the floor next to my bed. I had been in the house a couple of weeks when I awoke in the wee hours of the morning to the smell of smoke. Once I got my wits about me, I realized it was cigarette smoke I was smelling. Oh crap, I thought, someone's in the house. But the dogs were sleeping peacefully, which meant no intruder, so I went back to sleep. The next week, I was walking through the house when I smelled cigar smoke. It was like I had walked through a cloud of it, but upon entering the next room, that smell was gone. 2 weeks later, I was chatting with a neighbor who had lived in the same house on my street her whole life. I asked her if anyone had ever died in my house. Oh yeah, she said, Mr. B, he died in the bathtub back in the 1950s. So I asked her if he smoked. She said, yes, he smoked. He lit the next one with his last one. Now I was getting somewhere. I had a ghost with a name and the nasty habit of chain smoking. And as it turned out, he had some other annoying habits as well. He left the back door wide open one night, as is true in most neighborhoods that are in transition safety can be a street-to-street affair. This is the case in East Nashville. Mr. B would march around in the attic at all hours, and I couldn't leave dishes in the sink. If I did, I'd find a cup or cooking utensil on the kitchen floor the next day. There was one wall I couldn't hang art on. I'd hang a picture, and the next day it would be on the floor. It was evident he lived in the attic. Sometimes I'd hear old-timey radio from the 1940s coming from up there. That's where I'd hear him the most of the time, though I would see the occasional orb zooming around the corner downstairs. By this time, I had become used to it. And then one day, both of my dogs were cowering in my bedroom and they would not come out. That was the last straw for me. I went up to the attic and I read him the riot act. He could stomp around all he wanted, open and close inside doors and cabinets, and he could play his music, but he was to leave the front and back doors closed and locked, and my dogs were not to be messed with in any way. And if you break those rules, I'd do everything in my power to get him out of the house. After that, we had a clean kitchen, one bare wall, locked doors, and happy dogs. At one point, I had to have major surgery, which led to a long recovery. My father was retired and bored, and he traveled from Texas to Nashville to help me out. He slept in the spare bedroom in the attic that also acted as my music room. One night, he was shaken awake, and my dad told me he heard a male voice tell him that he had to get out right now. I had told my dad all about Mr. B, and my dad said he told Mr. B to F off, and the next thing my dad heard was one of my guitars hitting the floor. I eventually had to move back to Texas for family reasons, and in the years I had lived in the Craftsman home, I tried to bring it back to what it looked like when it was built in 1938. The guy who bought it told me that I had wasted my money because he was going to gut it and then flip it. What a jerk. As I was walking out the door for the last time, I told Mr. B that if he were so inclined, he should give that jerk a hard time. Oh, that's great. After I moved, I stayed in contact with my old neighbors. They told me that the activity at the house would start and then stop after a week, and then start and abruptly stop again. I imagine the workman witnessing a hammer go flying across the room or a ladder just falling over on its own. Once it was finished, the house was on the market for 6 months. If a flipped house isn't finished and sold in 6 weeks, it costs the flipper money, if the TV programs are to be believed. I could just hear Mr. B slamming a door or being a disembodied voice from another room saying, "Get out right now," as prospective buyers toured the property. The jerk lost his shirt on that one. Thank you so much for the stories and your continued enthusiasm for bringing great content to your listeners. You're welcome. Pay no attention to the critics. Their words tell you more about themselves and how miserable they are than any flaws you may have. Well, I think I'm going to zero in on that last paragraph. I think I've run off all the nasty people, mainly the mean Bigfoot people. I have a smaller audience now, and I'm so happy about that. What that means is less views, less subscribers, less money that YouTube pays me. But I would rather it be that way and have just a beautiful, nice set of people who enjoy these stories, and we can all interact, and I can think about you during the day and think, oh man, what a nice bunch of people follow along with this channel. People say don't pay attention to the comments and the meanness. That's hard to do. I don't lose any sleep over it, or I didn't when it used to be that way. It does get under your skin, and I'd be a Mr. Tough Guy if I said, oh, it doesn't bother me. But it does bother me, but I would always bite back at most of them or just ban them from commenting. With all that said, we have whittled this audience down. We've weeded all those a-holes out. And this is the absolute nicest bunch of people. I've always said y'all were the nicest audience on the internet, and I mean it. And now it's nothing but nice people. You can tell if you read through the comment section, you can tell it. People are so nice. They interact with each other, and I'm able to answer some of the comments, and it's just a good place to be. I'm not a comment reader. Like when I watch a YouTube video or Facebook video or whatever, I never comment. I never comment one way or another. I'm just there to watch. With this channel, there's only about 5% of the people that actually view a video that will leave a comment. But I have a feeling that the people who don't comment are just the same. They're just nice people who like to listen to a good story every once in a while. So I'll quit going on and on about that. But this was a great lighthearted story about a ghost in a house in East Nashville built in 1938. And the owner apparently still lives there. And this guy's comment about trying to summon the ghost to run off the new owner, that was hysterical. But thank you for that. I enjoyed this story. I really appreciate the man sending it to me. Thank you. Hey, thank you all for listening to this podcast. I appreciate you. I want to say one thing. I don't talk in these videos anymore. I used to in the first couple of 3 years I did this podcast. I'd talk to y'all, and I know some people like it and some people don't, but the truth is I just really don't have much to say. I just like doing these stories. I like reading them, wrapping them up, editing them, and getting them out to you all. But there is one thing that has made me angry for ever since I opened the account. This account I have with this spring company, it's where you buy t-shirts. I don't think it's under my YouTube videos anymore because they are a horrible company. The quality of the t-shirts is bad. They are overpriced. Their customer service is horrible. I even ordered 2 hoodies for my brother-in-law 3 months ago. I still haven't gotten them. Nobody's returning my call. Nobody's returning my emails. I'm switching. You all have asked why I don't have t-shirts for sale anymore. The reason is because I tried to get them. I can't figure out a way to shut down the store. That's the truth. I have looked at every button on their website, and I've discontinued every ad I have. I've done everything I can to keep it off the channel. So don't buy anything from Spring, at least for my merchandise, because more than likely you're going to get ripped off. I think the company's about half broke. Maybe a year and a half ago, you used to click, I'd make $20, $30, $50, $60 a month off commissions. If you buy a t-shirt, I get a little piece of it. It got to where they were taking 2 to 3 months to pay me, and I could tell something was wrong. And then all of a sudden, when I did start getting paid, and it still takes, I haven't gotten a payout in months, but the last few I got, they were sent to me by another company, and it still took 2 or 3 months to get paid. So anyway, I just wanted to say I'm sorry that company did not live up to what I thought they would do. I'm switching to a new company, and when I get time, I'm going to put out Steve Lilly t-shirts, Dixie Cryptid t-shirts. They're going to be great. I just haven't had time to design a few t-shirts and get them up. So I wanted to let y'all know that. Don't buy anything from Spring through my channel. Just don't do it. You're going to lose your money. It's overpriced. Quality's not good. They're these little thin t-shirts. It's like I wear a 2X, and they must send me a Chinese 2X because, a 2X in China is probably about half my size. I don't know. I just don't like anything about the company, and I'm trying to switch over. So I want to let y'all know that. Appreciate you listening to my rant, and we will see you guys on the next podcast. Thank you.